101.1 and 99.5 FM. Kaicho Radio, the radio with a difference.
It is 13 hours 57 and 13 hours 37, my apologies, and it is time for COVID-19 and Elections Watch. We do apologize for the late start. This afternoon, as usual, Mr. Leonard Gildarie, senior journalist of Kaicho News, is at the helm of the program alongside Dr. Yog Mahadeo. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, and I think
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Kevin seems to be yesterday or sometime last evening. He's there, so we're gonna pull him forward. It's a beautiful day. It's day 13th of the recount, and I want to say welcome to wherever you are, all across Guyana. Good day to you people. The sun is shining. It seems to be pretty bright. I want to say good afternoon there to Dr. Yog Mahadeo. How you doing, sir?
Good afternoon, Leonard, and good afternoon, Kevin, and one and all. I'm well, thank you. Looking at what's going on, boxes without serial numbers, boxes missing the correct list. All of that is happening today, Leonard.
Yes, lots of things happening, and there's a bounce in your voice, and I think there's a bounce in everybody's voice. We looking up, things seems to be looking a little better. That could be changed in a blink of an eye. And let's get right down into it. There's some major news developing over the weekend. Yesterday, we would have seen the president making a surprise visit to the Artichon Convention Center. And what he said and what he didn't say, that is making the news now. Also, we're paying very close attention when it comes to COVID-19 to what is happening over in Brazil, our neighbor there. And Yog, it's not looking so good for COVID-19. There's some development, and especially in Region 9, which is a region that borders with Brazil, that we should all be paying attention to. On that side of it, COVID-19, there's some good news. There's a gentleman by the name of Niaz Soban, former parliamentarian, and also he's close to the People's Progressive Party, but he was one of them that the story is not about his political connection. The story is about the fact that he was one of them that was in isolation for 49 days. He's out, he's free. So that is some good news. However, the bad news is our numbers are still going up. It might be crawling some days, it might be jumping some other days. And so we have to pay very, very close attention to that. But let's get straight into elections 2020. I think they're looking at some boxes. Yes, go ahead, Yog.
Don't forget that over the weekend, the Region 1 count would have been, the certificate of tabulation would have been issued, signed, and certified by GCOM.
Absolutely there, Yog. And so let's get right down into it. The president made a visit to the Artichon Convention Center yesterday, held a press conference, kind of with the media yesterday, very limited questions, and it was over very quickly. However, he's made it very, very clear. One thing, I'm in charge. I speak on behalf of the government. And he says, I think this is what Guyana should be expecting from a leader, as to whether it means 2 or 3 different things, because he says he's going to accept any declaration from GCOM. This is in stark contradiction to what would have been coming out on Friday or on Saturday from Basil Williams, his Attorney General. And let me, maybe you could correct me here, but based on what he's saying, what Basil Williams said, and then he has issued a statement afterwards, I think I saw it yesterday, which says that he did not say what he said. So let's get right down into it. Yog, did you pay attention to what the president said yesterday? I am in charge. I speak on behalf of government. I will accept any declaration of GCOM. Let's get right into it. What does he mean by that?
Well, Leonard, the president made a lot of people probably think it was just a presidential show, but I think his statement needs to be looked at and relooked at and relooked at, because if it's one thing it's pointing to is that there seems to be very, very clear split in the psychology of the leadership of the APNU AFC party. The president made a couple of statements, and we cannot take it lightly, Leonard. When you're right, he basically asserted himself and said, I am speaking on behalf of the government. He did not say He was speaking on behalf of the list. He did not say he was speaking on behalf of APNU AFC. He said, I'm speaking on behalf of the government. There is a difference, as you know. These are not the days when the paramountcy of the state, paramountcy of the party, subsumes everything else. So it was interesting to see that he, as the president of Guyana, went on to say that he's ready to accept the results declared by GCOM.
But before you go there,
Yet-
quickly,
Yeah, go
Yog,
on.
before you go there, because I want to take it one thing at a time. I'm in
Sure.
charge. I speak on behalf of government. Yesterday, was he there as a leader of government? Was he there as a leader of the APNU AFC? Well, who, in what capacity could he have been there? Because he could not have been there as the president of Guyana.
Yeah, but I beg to disagree. He was only there as the president of Guyana.
Could he not have gone as the leader of the APNU FC, a coalition which contested the elections?
Well, that's why I said he could have only been there as the president, because he could have said so. When that question was thrown at him, he could have said, but look, David Granger is a very astute, a very smart man. You and I know him.
Mm-hmm.
We have interacted with him in the past, and he is a very intelligent guy, to say the least. And so he is clever, he's careful with the words he uses. He's aware maybe of the forces and all of that. But Leonard, when challenged that your Attorney General, Basil Williams, said so, he responded by saying, I am speaking on behalf of the government. Now, you're right. In this day and age, one might think, well, you're the head of the list. But remember, the elections are not over. He still remains the head of the list. He is the presidential candidate. If he went there, Leonard, as a presidential candidate, he could not have commandeered. A presidential candidate could not have commandeered the resources across the road as he did. Because everybody else, every other presidential candidate had to go to your tent. But he commandeered the resources opposite over on the road by the aquatic center. And so that's, he went there as the president.
Well, it's interesting because I'm a little confused here, and maybe, I guess, with your legal background, Yog. The president, when Basil Williams was there, he could not have been there in this capacity as the Attorney General. He had to be as a party official, as an official from the coalition. He made certain statements. It would not have been on behalf of government. At least is my thinking.
Correct.
And hence, if the president says, I am speaking on behalf of government, he would not be accepting any decisions or any declaration by GCOM or disagree with or reject the declaration as a president. He would be as the leader of the coalition. And so I wanted to get that out of the way, because we're asking these questions because...
But hold on, Leonard. It was the president and the opposition leader that invited CARICOM. The president's own political party took the president's decision to court. In other words, the president's own political parties, members thereof, disagreed with the president's decision to call on GCOM to overlook the recount. So there are many things at play here. And you're right, we cannot accept one argument as being logical or not. I've seen, as you rightly say, Basil Williams. He has denied telling the media that the current national recount is illegal. I think we need to go to the tape. We need to go to the video, because, whether he wants to get away from his own statement is a different matter. He cannot deny saying that. What he should have said is, I meant saying so and so. But he has denied saying so, and then he offers clarity. But back to your position, we cannot separate the president from being the head of the list and being the presidential candidate, but I think he would prefer to be separated, wouldn't he?
It should be that there's a separation because we cannot mix the two up together. But he's making it very clear, because why I'm raising these issues here, because there seems to be division. And if it is that the president, as all time, says, I'm going to go with what the Constitution says, and I'm going to wait until GCOM would have made their declaration, I'm going to abide with what they say. And so there is a contradictory statement that is coming from his attorney general. And then you hear this. This is why I want to put it in context very clearly.
Correct.
I am the president, or I'm the lead of the party, and I'm saying to you, Yog Mahadeo, that this is not my view. My view is that whatever GCOM says, it is what I'm going to accept. So I just wanted to, because there seems to be, based on the statements that you see coming out from various sides, various supporters within the coalition, that there might not be a total agreement with the president's stance. So I want to ask you whether you believe that this is indeed so, this is a feeling that you have, if you've seen anything along those lines.
Well, I think what's been happening, Leonard, I believe there is a clear, there is not a unified position in the APNU, in the coalition. And everybody is there. I mean, Leonard, one has to feel for Daniel, the guy we had on our show a couple days back. You know, there is no cohesive approach. And I'm not saying that in criticism at all. They're doing the work. Their party agents come outside and make certain allegations. And then these guys who are at the front line have to now stand up and make those allegations either appear true or at least undoubtable, if not true. And so you find that was the position yesterday. Basil Williams came out to the Artisan Convention Center. He made a statement. The president, Mr. Granger, obviously did not know or would not have been told as to the gravamen, as to what really Basil Williams said or what he meant to have said. And so the president, when challenged, was put on a spot. And I think his answer was spot on. He spoke as the president, and that should be. And one thing you can say about him, he stood by that line all the time, Leonard.
He has stated time and again that he is going to abide by the Constitution, that he's going to abide by whatever rulings that GCOM would have made. And we know from time to time, before GCOM could have made those rulings, certain actions were taken. We could remember the Ulita Moore action, the court cases that stemmed when there was about to be certain decisions, like CARICOM coming into play. So they could be...
But Leonard, sorry to cut in, but just for the viewers and listeners especially, if you have not seen the video and you have not heard Basil Williams, I want to quote here, Leonard.
Yes.
Basil Williams said, I quote, "All 10 declarations are valid and subsisting under our law. The only way they could be rendered nugatory is by a decision of an election petition. And so it comes to the other status, question, and purpose of the national recount." He basically said the recount has no existence under current law and is therefore illegal. That's what he said that day. We do understand that as of today, I think the Guyana Chronicle or something would have carried him trying to clarify that position.
That is correct, Yog. There's a statement that came from Basil Williams as the Attorney General. I'm going to try to get that. And he is making it very, very clear. Let me see if I get this right away here. The DPI, let me see. 1 second.
Yeah, go on.
Yes. I'm trying to pull it up here. But in the meantime, okay, let me see. It is coming here. Let me see if I could read this. This is what he says in denying that he ever says. Let me see. AG denies deeming national recount illegal, clarifies statement to the media, and I write in relationship, this is a dear editor, I write in relation to an article appearing on the front page on page 10 of the May the 17th Sunday edition of your paper, captioned National Election Recount Illegal, A.G. Williams, Roysdale Ford. Party will accept results, Amna Ali. From the onset, I reject that I at any time said that the National Election Recount NER is illegal. I'm at all mature times have supported His Excellency President David Granger in his desire to have the presence and contribution of the CARICOM to determine the credibility of the March 2nd elections. Further, the AG did not join with Attorney at Law Roysdale Ford in the case to invalidate the NER that was taken to the courts. At all material times, I've asserted that the Guyana Elections Commission is an independent and constitutional body that cannot be dictated to by any person or authority. I've also cited the decision of the Caribbean Court of Justice to buttress this fact. Also, I've long acknowledged that the NER is not provided for under the national. Sorry, I missed there. Okay. Once. Okay. I have cited the decision of the Caribbean Court of Justice to buttress this fact. Also, I have long acknowledged that NER is not provided for under the National Elections Law, but GCOM has the power to provide for it under Article 162 1B of the Constitution, making it a constitutional NER. Yog, is this not in contravention or contradiction to what he would have said on over the weekend?
But I want to tell you something. He literally threw Rizel Ford under the bus. The David G bus maybe, but he threw Rizel Ford. I thought, Leonard, I know you've been busy doing your newspaper stuff there, but Rizel Ford at the end of that interview ended up looking like a real champ, as we say in Guyana. He spoke well. When questioned as to what Basil Williams said, Rizel Ford said, listen, Basil Williams and I are attorneys at law, and we can have our own personal interpretations as to what the law says, but it does not negate the party's position. So Rizel Ford actually spoke very well. I congratulated the man on my Facebook page and said, you spoke well, right? So Basil Williams literally has thrown Rizel Ford under the bus. But I want to tell you something else. Leonard, the politician seems to forget that Guyanese keep track of what they're saying. I want to throw this back at you, Leonard. Didn't Mr. Vincent Alexander say publicly 2 weeks ago that it was not the Ulita Moore case that brought a halt to the recount, but it was advice from Basil Williams that brought a halt to the... How can Basil Williams now say to you in this letter that he always supported whatever David Granger wanted and he always supported his president's position? These are two... This is a paradox.
Let me ask you a question, Yog, because I want to jump straight ahead into some other stuff here. There is a recount going on. The Region 1 is finished. It is certified. It's signed off by everybody else. We're steaming ahead with the other. We're not going as fast as we want to. Would the declarations of the President, David Granger, yesterday put pay to all that is happening and that we are looking forward to the recount declarations at the end of this process here, whenever that happens? Could we say that all the little sidebars and the little narratives is running to the side? We should not really be wasting our time with that. Let's look forward.
Well, yes and no. One is that the president has clearly said that, look, whatever it is that we are finding during this recount, we will take note of it. But the declaration after the recount will be what we are going to base the legitimacy of the next government on. So that's done. That's over and done with. The fact that his political party continues to throw acid into everything, maybe, if I lack of a better phrase, speaks a different tune that they are prepared for something else. Now, Leonard, the same party, you and I have said it over and over, the same party was prepared to accept Mingo's declaration. Mingo created, this man was like the Lord God creator. He created thousands of voters out of thin air and he declared them. And the same party was prepared to accept that. So much so, David Patterson 4 days ago said his SOPs closely match that of Mingo's, which means that his SOP that David Patterson has speaks to, whatever they have in there. Leonard, I want to just take a minute break. You go ahead, please.
Yes. And so there is on the headline of Kiteshore News today too, President Granger says government barred Carter Center out of concerns about COVID-19. And so the strict measures implemented to safeguard Guyana under the novel coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic is the sole reason behind government not clearing the Carter Center observer mission to return for the ongoing national recount of ballots. During a rare press conference as his first in almost 2 months, President David Granger told journalists that the Carter Center should respect the decision his administration has taken. He also asked that the public health situation be considered before any new requests are made. So there you have it. It is the president who would have said that, look, what we did there was, or he reinforced what was said earlier by the administration, by the COVID-19 task force, by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Well, not some of the COVID-19, but the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is that Carter Center could not come because the borders are closed, the airports are closed. But in the meantime, while we are waiting, Yog Mahadeo, let me tell you about a little bit of good news here. We're switching between COVID-19 and elections 2020. Nias Soban, and he was a former parliamentarian, former head of the National Network, NCN, National Communications Network, and he said, I'm happy to inform that I was discharged yesterday, May the 17th, after having been cleared of COVID-19. I spent 49 days in isolation. I am happy to be reunited with my family and extremely grateful to all those who treated or cared for me while in isolation, those who prayed for me and also those who encouraged me throughout that period, many of whom I did not know personally. Most of all, I'm thankful to Allah for giving me another chance in life. I will provide more in details over time. Thanks to all. And he's there. There's a photograph on his Facebook page. COVID free. He's there. He has beard. He has his mask on. Heavily bearded now. COVID free. He has a little placard kind of, and he has a cake too. I'm COVID free. So I want to say to Mr. Nias Soban, glad for you, bro. That hope that you recover well, and that obviously your family would be very, very happy with what had happened. Yog, you're back. So I want to ask you also. There is a front page picture in Kaichur News here. President David Granger meets GCOM chair Justice Claudette Singh, and I think they're a little incorrect here that they met with the commissioners. But the fact that he went to the Ortichon Convention Center there, did not meet with the commissioners, but met with himself, the GCOM chair, and staffers of GCOM. Anything wrong with that?
Personally, my personal view is I don't see a problem. The man is the president of the country, whether you agree or disagree, he's the president. And, he may have his position is that he would have a right to check upon the health, check upon, whether everything is going smoothly with GCOM and its process. Because there's so much politics going on, everybody's always going to find problem with one way or another. But I don't think it's worthy of national debate as to what he did or who he didn't meet. I think that the chairman of GCOM would have a position of reporting to her commissioners the details of that meeting.
Absolutely. So, Yog, you know that Guyana is not about Demerara alone. That we have so many other regions. We have 9 other regions. And so things are happening there. One of the important regions would be Region 6, which is east of us here. East Bobis, Corentyne. You can look at New Amsterdam, all along that line there. And so one would have been wondering what is happening with COVID-19. What is happening? Lots of farmers up the way. It's across the river, across the bridge, across the Berbice River there, that Berbice Bridge. And then the Corentyne area there along Skellon, and so it borders with Suriname. Lots of stuff would have happened because of COVID-19. The Corentyne River would have been restricted to any kind of river traffic unless you're essential. We know in the initial phase there would have been some villages along the Corentyne River which would have been affected, and I think it's Amerindian villages and so indigenous people villages, and they would have applied to the government, and subsequently they were allowed some kind of restricted the movements so they could bring the food, they could take in supplies and so on in and out of the area. So in Berbice at the moment, we would have made contact with the president of the Upper Berbice, Upper Corentyne Chamber of Commerce, and we have him online. So I want to say hello there to Mr. Mohindra Persaud, and I think while he may be known as the president of the Upper Corentyne Chamber of Commerce, he's also known for his affiliation to the Nan Persaud and Company. He is the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Mohindra Persaud. How are you doing, sir?
Hi, good afternoon. It's a pleasure.
Yes, I have with me here Dr. Yog Mahadeo, and I want to welcome you here to Kaicho Radio. So we want to hear what is happening down in Barbados. I know lots of persons up there would be tuning in to us on a daily basis to hear what is happening. And so let's talk rice. So you're heavily involved with rice up there. Could you give us an idea, or maybe you want to take us through with the Corentyne Chamber of Commerce, how it is that you're seeing things and how bad is the situation or how good it is?
Well, in the Upper Corentyne and Region 6, I would say it's a mix of some good and some depressing news. And as you said, rice, in the case of rice, we would consider it on the good side because we just concluded our first crop for the year. It was very good. And the starting of the second one are very ongoing. It's very active. And within the rice itself would have been so busy for the year or since last year, it would have been helped to create a lot of job, and those jobs was never affected by any reason. So that's on the good side. Also, we see the Gaisuku harvesting is currently going on, and a lot of people are employed there. We have the cash crop farm of the vegetable, and they are doing quite well as so. And there are a few other construction because of the weather. It's so good. People capitalize on it and doing a lot of construction. So that's create a lot of job opportunity, a lot of sales and all of that. So, and that's on the good side. The upper chamber, the upper Corentyne, it's for the past, it was not to the best, and things was kind of changing the lifestyle and picking up. And with this COVID, we see depressed, and they would have been probably suffer, I think, the most when this lockdown and all of this happened, because they have really had the biggest loss in the earning due to the closure, and people was just trying to get the things organized to venture into many other way of doing business and jobs and all of that.
So I want to ask you. I think one of the situation, one of the biggest hits that we would have seen, based on the reports that we had, was the fishing industry up there, the number 66 fishing complex, among other areas, and those people would have told us about. I saw over the weekend. I think Suriname arrested about 9 persons to seize 2 boats that was in their water fishing illegally. They say. Have you received any complaints from them? And if so, what is happening there?
Yes, that would have been on the depressed side because we get a weekly update on that. And they would have, the Suriname would have stopped the fishing in their water, which the Guyanese, that's the biggest business because most of the boats would be licensed to fish in the Suriname water. So they close off that fishing, leaving the fishermen to only use the Guyana water, which is not a big business for them in the upper Corentyne. So that is putting a lot of strain with the fishermen and their workers at a tremendous hardship. As I said, they do a little bit in the Guyana water, which is a small percentage of a catch.
So I have with me
And
here. Yes, I have with me here. Go ahead.
Similar situation we get with the Oriala farmers because the Suriname restrict them to use the Corentyne River, and that would reduce them to bring out their produce, and to, in case of any emergency of sickness, it's very hardship for them. And that's something too we get in a weekly report on how is the situation. And why we self at the chamber was seeking the government or anyone intervention to see how they could help in any way so that the Oriala farmers would have like a daily use of the Corentyne River so they can get their produce out. And, with not having their consistent delivery can affect the price too as well to go up in the Corentyne area.
Thank you very much for
Yes.
that, Mr. Mohindra Persaud. Yog, I know that you have your roots in Berbice and you're very closely, you have a lot of friends up there, and you're always trying to get me to like Berbice a little more. I like Berbice. I have a connection to Berbice. What question? You have any questions there for Mr. Mohin?
Well, Mr. Persaud, with regards to the Surinamese vigilance over the Corentyne River there, is it a most recent thing that they're being vigilant so that there is no ingress into their shores, so that their vigilance would have stepped up, or you feel it may be taking an advantage of COVID-19 to make their presence more felt?
It's an ongoing thing, Dr. Yog. This thing it's probably decade old.
Right.
It's for the past year there is a more vigilant and some more hardship for the fishermen in Guyana to have a license. And when they give them license, where the catch should sell, the catch, they compel them now to sell in Suriname. And so they do a lot of restriction for the past year, and that's brings some hardship to the fishermen. And then with the COVID, they do a lockdown, and that bring very hardship to the.
And in your experience, what would have been? How much would have government tried to intervene to get outside of COVID? I'm talking about in the normal run of the mill. How much would have the Guyana government, past and present, tried to intervene to get an ease in that situation? Did it happen? Did it work?
I might not be able to answer that question directly, but I know for sure we have made a lot of representation through various means and even direct with ministers visit to the region. We are aware of it. So how much they have done directly with Suriname, we never have a good response or a details response on any minister, more so the foreign affairs, or so, which might be the most responsible one, of a clear response that they receive from them. But we always on the push to get these things this issue themselves.
So my next question, let's go to the agriculture. As you know, Berbice and Essequibo certainly would have been the heartbeat of agriculture Guyana, if not so in practice, at least in potential. Rice, would you be able to tell us how, has rice gone up? Is it down? Is it, because why I'm asking you, you did mention earlier that rice and you did say sugar cultivation is going on at this moment. So out of concern also for the workers and their exposure under COVID-19, tell us a little bit whether you feel that people are flocking around in the different markets and how you feel the rice and sugar, particularly rice, has been doing in terms of last year versus this year, trend-wise.
There is a small trend of increased production, increased yield, and in terms of prices, very much stable, and that allows the industry to do well because of the stable price, and there is a small increase of production constantly. In terms of the workforce and the safety, I think to some extent, great extent, there is a lot of safety measure in place, and the farmers and our business, and so they do a lot in terms of ensuring that the workers wear the protective gears and keep the distance. There are some areas you might find that people are make you up. It's not going to be right across the board. I can't speak for that person, though.
Yes, my last question on this. let's take Port Morant Market. In your experience, I don't know if you visited recently. Would the sellers and buyers that visit that, because it's one of the largest markets around, on the Saturdays, would the sellers and buyers have been wearing masks and taking necessary precautions? Would you know?
I never visit for quite some time, but I know I ask someone time to time to do video, and I look at the video, and you can see it's not as much busy as it used to be. People tends to hesitate to go to the market, but it's a mix where some people walk very freely without no masks, and you find that masks. So that is something really need to implement by the market, by the Port Morentyne NDC itself, put some restriction that people visit the market or the seller, so we can really take control of this virus.
Agree. Thank you. Leonard?
Yes, and so if you're now joining us on this elections and COVID-19 watch, we are joined here, myself and Dr. Yog Mahadeo, by none other than Mr. Mohindra Persaud. He's the CEO of Nan Persaud and Company. He's also the president of the Upper Corentyne Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So I want to ask you, in the whole scheme of things, what are the businesses and the people of East Berbice asking the government to do? Because we have received several calls, and I know through the chamber, so the business would have been reaching out. What is it that they want up there now?
Well, there are a few things they would asking for. Is one of the lockdown, they would ask that some small measure release. I don't know how they will manage it though, because we get closure of the bar, restaurant are really restricted, and stores and all that. Some small relief so that they can get on with their life in a small way. And there are some depressed area which are requesting actually the religious leader and chambers and individual for some help in some area where, as I said, the entire fishing community are now going out to work because of the Suriname. And there are small packet of individual would have been like, because of the school close, it's created a lot of hardship too for the small family who would have been service, selling things around the schools and the higher care, with all this lockdown, the higher care, I think they suffer tremendous. And those are the areas that would have been asking more often that they really need some intervention, because they are really feeling it for quite some time now. They are feeling the squeeze on this.
So would you say that your rice crop for this year, this first rice crop, it's better than last year?
I wouldn't say it's better, but I would say it's about the same, with some better condition of harvesting and all of that. So you would be able to reduce the cost of production with the only issue we have here was the water shortage, which would have been put some hardship on the farmers. But in terms of harvesting and all of that, went really well. The quality was on the good side, so that would have given the farmers some more yield.
And is the lesson?
So,
yes, go
Leonard,
ahead.
One more question, sir. So, under COVID, sir, I mean, I know you have spoken, and your position would have been one from the business sector and the private sector per se. But under COVID-19, sir, the reports that both Leonard and I would have received, and indeed I have been part of a team that is distributing hampers and foodstuffs in many places in the country. What is the lot of the poor? Because a lot of businesses are closed. A lot of, as you rightly said, the economic activities have been contracted, so to speak. What is the lot of the poor? What is the lot of the people who are living in Crabwood Creek? Maybe, I mean, I know that's far from you, but let's go down to the last dams of Albion, Port Morant area, you know, Kanji, all of those Palmyra areas and so forth. What is the lot of the poor as we speak, sir?
It's a hard question to answer, but, you know, before the year start, you know, Corentyne was basically doing fairly good because most people start to do alternative jobs and all of that. And there was almost everybody was kind of busy getting something done until this virus and it's make everything back to maybe early last year. So to tell you percentage, I was not going to be able to, but it might be on a fair side. Not on a lot, but on the fair side.
Okay.
Because these people who was trying to get into something and maybe try to settle into something, this would have put them back, rail back, and takes away with all the effort they would have tried to put in, whether it's a small business, starting back into a job. Because if you're in a job, the employer will probably send you home first because you are a newcomer, and they would have been suffer the most. So the lot would have been the same people that who may suffer 2 years ago, a year ago. Those would have been the percentage of people suffer the most as per today. That was my best judgment.
So, Mohin, I want to ask you very quickly as we wrap up the segment here. Would you be in a position to say whether this entire lesson that is being learned, especially with the agri sector, is that agriculture will remain very, very important, and that the government or whoever authority that are there, that they should really take stock and ensure that agriculture remain where it is or a little higher?
Well, for me, I always push government and push the private sector to let's do something more for agriculture. Every year we should have some plan where we expand our agriculture. We should have a 10-year, a 20-year plan for agriculture so we can grow agriculture. Every year we see a growth because agriculture have a great potential. You have a lot of opportunity because of the growing population in the world over. And with Guyana itself, will do better in coming years. Consumption will increase, quality of food will more needed. So there is agriculture itself. For me, I've been for years and for decades, you know, pushing for agriculture. And that's why you see in Corentyne, every year we get a small growth in more cultivation of land. You know, so we need to push it much quicker than what we're doing it right now.
So I do thank
Leonard.
Yes.
Just one more thing, sir. Are you? Would you be able to comment as to whether there is a cross-border challenge that that might be prevailing on the Corentyne? Because we know that Brazil, as Leonard, you said at the top of the program, there is a serious challenge at Brazil, our border with Brazil, because Brazil has a massive, a sudden surge of persons who are sick and dying from COVID-19. We want to know whether you would know whether there is any such concern in Berbice with the, especially the Corriverton end. I know it's far from you, so sorry if I'm putting you in a difficult spot.
From my understanding and speaking to few individuals, they would have told me there is nothing going on, because what happened when them hear that the river is being patrolled by the army, then it's really scared the hell out of people, you know. So once they hear the word army and they can see army moving around. They don't take chances. So from my understanding, people not even moving across, whether in the day or the night, they really respect that. When they hear.
I'll tell you the reason. I'll tell you the reason I ask. It's not so much to solicit your response, but Leonard, the truth is that if you look at Suriname, right? If you look at Suriname probably is one of the few countries in the world that has not had has not had any increase in its coronavirus statistics. And it's because these people have been extremely vigilant, as you could see and hear from reports. They have boats manning their borders with Guyana. And I have a few friends over there who spoke to me that they're on a border with French Guyana. I mean, these people have taken this thing seriously. Unfortunately, in Guyana, we are so overcome with elections and all the other stuff that's happening that it's not being serious. But one of the ways they have managed to curb it is to be very, very, very vigilant on the ingress and egress to and from the country.
Yes, that's true. I mean, as Anna said, once you hear the word army is running the border, then everybody scared the hell out of it. They don't want
Correct.
to take that.
To put it in perspective, I'll tell you, Leonard, from the time Suriname had its first COVID case to, 3 weeks after, they had about 10 cases. Up to last week, that 10 remained 10 with one death. From last week to this week, they got one additional case. And I'm trying to find out where did the one case come from. But it showed that they're serious about themselves and protecting the people.
And yes, Yogi, it is something. But while that's happening down in the east, on the other side of our borders there, next to Brazil, it is not so. It's not something to be very, very happy about. So, Mr. Mohindra Persaud, of course, here, the Chief Executive Officer of Nan Persaud and Company. Anything else you want to say in parting, sir?
Well, I think closing, I would say thanks to be joining you two of you all. And here in the Corentyne, we try to keep safe. We try to do a lot of work at the same time because it's important that we continue our production, especially for Nan Persaud, which produce rice food. And we can't we ever slow the production down because we realize if we have to slow it down and do any restriction, then it can really tell on the price because it can create scarcity. So we try to push, and even the Caribbean countries, then we had to really push hard to get rice out there because the panic buying actually make the price on the retail side goes up, and we don't want to see more of that. So at our level, we really producing a lot to keep the price stable and ensure that everybody have rice to buy, not only in Guyana, but in Caribbean.
So I do thank you for there, Mr. Mohindra Persaud, the Chief Executive Officer of Nan Persaud and Company, and they are up in the Corentyne Berbice, one of the biggest rice producers in Guyana. So thank you very much there, Mr. Mohindra Persaud, and do have a pleasant rest of the day, and of course, a good day to your staff is there as well. And I know that you're part of the Upper Corentyne Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I want to say hello to those folks there as well. So have a pleasant rest of the day, sir, and thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
So, Yog, while we're saying goodbye there to Mr. Mohindra Persaud, I'm seeing here over the weekend the Ministry of Finance would have put out a statement via the Small Business Bureau, Ministry of Business. And they're saying that the small business relief grants and services they are registering small businesses now who are experiencing the economic challenges as a result of COVID-19. And they said the relief support is intended to strengthen and sustain small businesses. So if you want, you'd have to get in contact with the Small Business Bureau, Ministry of Business, register your business there. And let me just tell you that the numbers that you could get them on is 633-7101, 633-7102, or 608-8494. So let me just go over that one more time. 633-7101, 633-7102, 608-8494. And you could, if you have a small business and you have run into problems because of COVID-19, you could make an application for some kind of relief from the Small Business Bureau, Ministry of Business. So, Yog, while that is happening, let's get straight down into Region 9, Yog. Yog, over the last couple of days, we would have seen a report coming out from a Yog Grammar forests there, those people who manage the conservation of a large part of our forests in Guyana. And they would have indicated that if you want to pass through their forest, and you have to pass through if you're using the Linden Lethem Road and heading to Lethem or coming from Lethem, you have to pass through their forest. So they're saying that before you even pass through their forest, you have to start wearing masks. And the reason for that is very simple. There was a gentleman who was Region 9's first COVID case. And here's the alarming situation, Yog. And this is something that is going to cause the authorities, or have caused the authorities, to really look into what is happening there. He is a vendor, the one that moves around in his vehicle, and he would have been there with his workers from village to village to village. And he was COVID-19, he was a first case. So the authorities have the hard task of going back and trace where he would have went, who did he come in contact with. In the meantime, they have tested several persons. What they're finding, based on what I was told, is that he was crossing back and forth from Brazil into Guyana. Now, that is a developing story. Now, here the problem is, along the Brazil border there, we know, Guyanese know, that there's a bridge linking Brazil to Guyana, the Takatu Bridge across the Takatu River. That lands somewhere by Lethem there. They would have closed that bridge there. They're not allowing you to go unless it's a really emergency. So what happens along that river there? There's several points of villages, 3 or 4 points that have bridges across the river there that links Guyana to Brazil. But there are other points of people been crossing that, you're bypassing the authorities. We don't know if this gentleman was part of that because he was doing trading. There's a brisk trade that used to happen between Brazil and Guyana. I'm not sure if they're still ongoing, but goods is coming across, and it is going and coming. So what we have happening here, you have another big developing situation, Marudi Mountains. It's the only place in Region 9 where they allow gold mining. And apparently there are many Brazilian miners there. So how do you get across back and forth? You have to use one of the legal crossings. And so Brazilians, the Amerindian village, the indigenous people villages along in Region 9, South Rupununi especially, over the weekend, they've been calling for closing of the mining activities in Region 9 so they could better protect themselves. And they're especially worried with the development of this case by this gentleman who would have been the first case in Region 9. So that is something that we're looking at. While you close the borders down there in Region 9, which is one of the big open borders with the Brazilians, that has been open. It's very difficult to manage, so we can't really hit the authorities for that. What you could also be very worried about is that in Region 1, with our borders with Venezuela, it seems as if it's business as normal. And talking about business as normal, we have somebody sent us some photographs yesterday at the seawall. We would have closed our seawalls and so no hanging out or so on as part of the COVID-19 measures. Somebody sent several pictures. There were a lot of cars out there yesterday behind the Marriott area there. Everybody seems to be having a picnic or whatever. Several cars, several vehicles. We have it here. It seems as if people are not paying attention, Yoga, and our numbers keep rising. Right. In Brazil, it is 485 cases alone yesterday. Persons that died, rather. They have 16,000 deaths so far. And this thing is almost, I think they're sixth. They've overtaken 1 or 2 of the European places like Italy and I think Spain, I think we be here now, in terms of the number of COVID cases. And I think they're 6th on the all-time list now. BBC has some very serious stories now. They have, I think in Sao Paulo, we're hearing that the hospitals, they run out of beds there right now. So Brazil has been very, very close to us in Guyana here. But that situation there with the open borders, it is deeply worrying. Is that what you're hearing there, Yog?
Yes, I'm hearing the same, Leonard, and it is indeed deeply worrying, and it is of great worry to us here. At the same time, Leonard, look at Trinidad. Trinidad has declared to do a phased reopening of some of its industries. So on one hand, it is very, very worrying, and it is worrying especially because we may not have, this is not a political statement. it's a practical statement that, we do not have the ability to completely man our borders. We do not have. In the case of Suriname, you know what, Leonard, the fact that we have not exploded with numbers. Thank God Suriname has been as vigilant as they are, right? Because they don't allow anybody to come into their country. And so that saves one side. That's the truth, you like it or not, but it is the truth. On the other side, at Latin, we are seeing, as you're rightly saying, on the Brazil end, the Venezuela end. The Venezuela end is worrying too, Leonard.
I'm deeply worried about that.
Knowing what we know about Venezuela and the numbers we are seeing there, it speaks to a bit of a concern as to whether the correct numbers are coming out. Remember, Venezuela is a highly populous nation. It has a large concentration of people in its urban areas. Yet Venezuela is showing 541 persons with 10 deaths. Now, we got to remember Venezuela is under a lot of problems, economic problems, because of the sanctions that have been imposed upon its leaders and so forth. So whether the reports there are factual or not, it's up for debate. But the truth is that the Brazil end, as you rightly pointed, at least, creates a great danger for us here. And remember, a lot of Guyanese are over there, undocumented persons are over there.
And right, Yoga, and that's something I think with the Trinidad situation, the small island, they might be in a better position to do some kind of control there. When it comes to Guyana, we have wide open borders, challenges extreme. Yog, there's another situation that we should be paying attention to when it comes to elections 2020, and we'd have to pay to our diplomatic situation going forward. We've seen some serious statements over the last couple of weeks, over the weekend. I think it's Lillian Chatterjee, the High Commissioner of Canada, would have tweeted that she is wondering why we have blocked again the entry or the re-entry into Guyana of Carter Center to overlook or to scrutinize, pay attention to the election, observe. Do you believe, this is a conversation we would have had, do you believe that we're heading downhill pretty quickly when it comes to our international relations? Is it gone?
I would say it's at the brink. The international community has exhibited a lot of patience here. They're still hoping, and this is why, Leonard, put it in perspective. This is why David Gray just spoke the way he did yesterday. On one side, there is the issue with him saying yesterday that he still stopped or it's because of COVID that Carter Center was not allowed. But we all know that the Carter Center's permission or the removal of permission for them to come here is more political rather than pragmatic. Because we do know there are aircrafts landing in Guyana very, very frequently, bringing in people who nobody knows whether they're essential or non-essential, whatever it is. But one would think that our elections are very essential to the life breath of this country. And Leonard, also, the CARICOM people, I shared this email with you last week, that Carter Center people was willing to undergo the same exact stringent test for their checks and balances prior to landing in the country as the Carter observer does. So in the face of the Carter Center saying we're going to do exactly whatever you want to comply with your regulations for COVID, we're going to do it. So in the face of them saying that, still the APNU AFC government has made a political decision to remove the accreditation of Carter Center. In other words, to not allow them to come into this country, to remove the travel visa from them to come into the country using COVID-19. Leonard, I want to tell you this. I asked this question on Facebook this morning, and everybody's reading it depending on what side of the coin, which side of the political divide they're on. Leonard, the truth is, let us suppose that it was Jagdeo was a president. Let us just suppose, if it was President Jagdeo or a President Donald Ramotar that made a decision to have a private meeting with Claudette Singh yesterday, Or if it was a President Jagdeo that made a decision to not invite the Carter Center, what would this country have been saying? And sometimes we need to put things into these perspectives with all the narratives and all the fights we're into fighting with each other every day. One, we need to do what if, we need to say if the shoe would fit equally on another pair of feet. And sometimes I wonder where is our logics as a nation.
Well, talking about logics there, Yog, I could tell you when it comes to the COVID-19 National Task Force, I think this is in the fourth week. We have not had any kind of engagements when it comes to the media. We used to have one, I think, a press conference either Thursday or Friday or Saturday during the week. We have not had one for about 3 or 4 weeks now. We're not sure what is happening there, but the people in the meantime, you heard from Mohindra Persaud not too long ago. There are needs up in the Berbice area. There are questions to be asked as to what happened, what is our engagement with Suriname, what is happening down at the Brazil area there. So many questions, and we're not hearing anything. I want to ask you, Yog, because this I saw the story surfacing again this weekend. Komal Chan, a union leader, he died. His wife went with him in February to Cuba. He died over there. Now, the borders are closed. They're not allowing anybody that is outside of the country to come in because we know that they had brought in some persons who were stuck in Barbados, I think it was. They brought in like about a dozen and a half of them. And then there were some problems putting them up and complaints. I think there was even a court case of that person being held against the will. So I want to ask you, do you believe, what do you think of the government not being able to give permission at this point in time? The family said they were willing to pay to bring his body or his remains back to Guyana. The wife is stuck there. The family is a little worried because she's in ill health at the moment as well.
Well, Leonard, my response would be that I would need to, I need to know what the government is saying and why they're saying. I think the media needs to put the question to the government, a direct question, because we're only hearing through the family of Mr. Chan.
Right.
I think we need to have a direct a release from the government on this matter. And, other than that, it becomes a political statement.
Yes, and I agree. Because one of the things, I understand the predicament that the government is in here, that if you allow that that flight or him to be brought back here with the family, then what happens to those people overseas? Of course, but I agree with you. So we are, Yog, I'm not sure if anything, is there anything else that we had missed that we had to discuss? I think there was a couple of issues when it comes to election that we have to look into. It is day 13. We still have, 10, 12 more days before the 25 days run out. There has been no okay as of today that we know of for the installation of 6 more counting stations. At least we don't know. It seems unlikely based on what we're seeing that permission is going to be given. So you run out of those 25 days. What happens next?
Well, I'm sure that GCOM will be making a decision very soon. I think the bigger question, though, is why wouldn't the COVID task force, that political set of chaps there, why they would not have done anything with regards to increasing the number of workstations. However, I think that Valda Lawrence, in speaking to the press a couple days ago, she intimated that I basically think she said they're not going to approve more workstations, but that's up for interpretation. But I think GCOM did not increase the 25 days as yet because it's awaiting the approval to increase the workstations, Leonard. And it is upon them knowing how much workstations they could operate that will determine the end game when that conclusion can be held.
Yes, and I don't even want to ask you if you believe there's going to be a conclusion to this recount. The president is saying that I will await a decision and I will recognize and accept that declaration by GCOM when the recount is finished. So if you're now joining us, a special edition here of the elections and COVID-19 watching Kaicho Radio, you could catch us there on Kaicho Radio on Facebook as well. On YouTube, we're there too. And if you want to get onto us right now, because we're opening the lines right now, 226-7453. You could call us on that, or you could also WhatsApp us, SMS us, and 6222222. So it's 226-7453. Caller online there already. Yes, good afternoon, caller. You on the air?
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Hope all is well.
Yes.
I'd like to make a few comments. One, I'd like you to look back at the statement of the president. He did not say he'll accept the declaration by GCOM. He said he'll accept the declarations by GCOM chair. Now, you can read into that because I'm reading into that too. This recount that we're having right now is not the recount based on the agreement by the two gentlemen. This is the recount that Mistress Claudette Singh says she will have, Miss or Mistress, whoever she is. So we have to question what is her motive for this recount and what is she looking for. Secondly, I am noticing, like everybody else, like this country get the news that we don't have COVID. People are going into stores, even the people in the stores are not wearing masks anymore, talking about the owners and the workers. And tongue is like if we don't have COVID. When you're going home in the night, right outside the prison on Durban Street, the police are there who guard in the prison. People are playing domino right next to the police, and these girls, whether they're from Brazil, Venezuela, wherever they are, they're there without masks and playing car dominoes. Nobody is stopping that. When you pass by Charlotte Camp Street, every religious day since this lockdown, in the night, their cars parked there drinking beers, and they're having a nice time. No, you can't drink beers with mask on. So somewhere along the line, while we're talking about our borders, if we're not being careful inside, we cannot be careful outside. And that's what is happening in this country. Nobody is taking this thing seriously. But please, I'll listen to your comments off here.
Yes, any comments to that, Yog?
Well, in the main, I think the caller has drawn our attention to Granger's statement that he will accept the declaration of the GCOM chairman. The truth is that it is the chairman that will have to make. So in terms of the verbiage, in terms of the words used by the legal people, it is the chairman that will have to make that declaration. So it's GCOM would sign off, the commission would sign off, but ultimately it's like, when you say that swearing in, it's the chancellor of the judiciary that would have to overlook the swearing in. You can argue whether it's the chancellor will do the swearing in or the office of the chancellor does the swearing in. 6 of one, half a dozen the other.
Well, talking about 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, before we go to the phone lines again, I want to ask you, I seem to be getting an impression as if there are questions over the legality, and that's forgetting Basil Williams at the moment, the legality of the recount. Your thoughts, your personal thoughts on that, Yog?
As we said a week after week, Leonard, the recount is not illegal. That's why GCOM gazetted an order. The fact that that order exists, we cannot have any other argument because that forms the law under which the recount takes place. So I don't know where Basil Williams would have come from, but he totally ignored the order. However, in his recant that he did today, he has pointed to the fact that, the recount GCOM has, GCOM is unfettered by law. GCOM can, as I think Royzel Ford and what was the other lawyer's name, they basically said tomorrow morning GCOM, and whether you like it or not, Leonard, tomorrow morning GCOM can say, look, we're going to gazette another order, the recount is going to be halted and we're going to use the declaration, which is what David Patterson is calling for. GCOM is unfettered and they can do. So far, they have done maybe the right thing in allowing the recount after that nightmare that was Mingo. But to answer your question, the recount is very much legal.
A nightmare it is, and I can't seem to wake up from it. It seems to be going on and on and on. We have a caller in line. Caller, good afternoon. You're near.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
To you and Dr. Mahadeo, the long-hair guy.
Good description. Go ahead, you're near.
I'd like to draw something to your attention. There is a police station up on the East Coast, which is called Vigilance Police Station.
Mm-hmm.
There is a sergeant by the name of Cummings. He in charge of the station. He bought a car recently, a Mercedes-Benz for a couple $1 million.
No, sorry, this is not. This is COVID. This is election and COVID watch. Are you sure you want to bring this up here?
Pardon?
This is elections and COVID-19 watch.
Okay.
I don't think this is a forum for that, but you know how to get it. You can drop it in a mail to us. Thank you very much. So this is the elections and COVID-19 watch. Anything elections and COVID-19, call us in. Let us know what is happening. We want to hear what is happening in your area, whether it is down in the Crabwood Creek, whether it's up the Pomeroon, and we have had calls. Let us know. We want to hear. There's a caller online. Good afternoon, caller.
Right. Good afternoon to you, gentlemen.
Yes, good afternoon, sir.
Yes. I'm gonna make I want to say my take on the president's statement yesterday. Right. Now we as Guyanese living in Guyana and what happened over the past from 2015 to now. Right. I know the president was known to say one thing and do the other. For example, his actions when appointing or unilaterally appointing Patterson, the fit and proper chairman, that he acted constitutionally, which when in essence he didn't, and also his action after the no confidence motion. Right? So this guy is the kind of fellow who always said that he working with the Constitution, he's doing the thing constitutionally, when his action is doing something else. So his statement yesterday that he's gonna accept whatsoever GCOM chairman declare at the end of this recount or whatsoever, I think is a tactics to get participants and stakeholders to drop guard. That is the way I see it. So I ain't buying that. At least for me, I ain't buying what he said here, because he's known to do opposite of what he said. Now, my question to you and Mr. Yog is that what you think about Mr. Granger being the presidential candidate in this current election, whether if he visited the Archichon Convention Center yesterday in the capacity as the president or whether as the APNU leader, do you think it's right for him to have that meeting there yesterday without the presence of the commission who have both sides of people representing them? Because I think it's not right, because if he could be entitled to that meeting, I think other parties and also the opposition leader should be entitled to have those. There was a secret meeting, according to me, because there was no opposition commissioners there. It was just him and the secretary, the CEO, and the chairman. So I think that was actually wrong. I don't think he should be given that privilege, since he is a presidential candidate for the APNU AFC. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so, Yoga, I'm not sure whether it's secret. I think there's some photograph, but I think secret in the sense that we don't know what was
Leonard, let me put it this way. Yeah. The president, he didn't need to go there, right?
Right.
Yeah, he could have invited the chairman of GCOM to meet him at his office where he serves the nation from. I think it was a lot of photo op. I think it was designed to create some dialogue that he is in charge. I think, and his statement that he's speaking on behalf of the government spoke. I cannot disagree with the caller. I wouldn't necessarily agree, because my question remained, if Jagde was president and he had gone there yesterday and had met with Madam Claudette Singh, would everybody have been okay with that? The other side, the PPP supporters may have been okay, and APNU AFC would have been shouting at it, like what's happening now, of course, the opposite way. But the truth is that I believe it was a photo op. Mm-hmm. I think he erred in his photo op, because he obviously didn't go there prepared with what his surrogates were saying behind his back with regard to the recount. But, I think that also Leonard needed to have made a statement. Mm-hmm. The caller is right on something, and I wish to point this out. The government has been caught being not necessarily the lovers of truth with regards to this COVID-19 and Carter Center. It was only after that letter was released where the foreign affairs minister wrote to the embassy. Remember that letter? That memorandum that I think was released by the embassies to show that it was the government, not the COVID task force, that wrote to the ambassador to say they are not agreeing with the Carter Center coming. So when the proverbial stuff happened, Granger now has to take ownership. He cannot anymore deflect from the point that it is he who instructed that decision. Also, Granger did something else yesterday. Granger has said that he is directing the COVID task force. Yesterday, he spoke about the COVID task force, and even though there is that ordinance in place, he is obviously directing the COVID task force. And it just underlines what I have been saying almost every day on this show, that the COVID task force is a political subunit within the politics of Guyana. Nothing more. I don't see a medical person heading the COVID task force as it should be. It is a political unit. And half of the time, they're all over there at the recount center getting their political gamesmanship sharpened.
And that's a very serious statement, a very serious view. So we head to the phone lines once again. Yes. Good afternoon, caller on the air.
Hi, good afternoon to you, Mr. Gildarie. Dr. Yog, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Now, concerning COVID-19, let me look at the big picture before we look at the little one. The big picture is in the house. Now, the government, I will say the government and the police force have people partying still on the road. Right? Now, if this country is on a lockdown, 6 to 6, now the small man can't make money 6 to 6. The Demerara Harbor Bridge, why by 9 o'clock it don't close to all vehicular traffic? It is well okay working. The police have to cross, the ambulance have to cross, the fire service have to cross. They have priority. Close to all vehicles. You're saying the country is on a lockdown. Let me give the people from 6 o'clock to, let me say, 8 o'clock. Give them 2 hours more to get off the road. The Harbor Bridge will be closed from 8 o'clock at night. Now, we got business people proportion to Georgetown and so on. In the morning, from 4:30, bridge will be working. I don't want nobody lining up at the Harbor Bridge. Why the government making money still with the Harbor Bridge? But the poor and ordinary man adhering to COVID-19 rules. The government is appalling nonsense. That is one. Number two, the president went to the Archon Convention Center and he was addressing people as minister. The constitution of this land states that as long an election is being held, no, not the election, as long as election days has been set, Parliament and the party of the president is reached with this minister. That is condemned, right? Only the president left standing. Why is it that he's addressing people as minister? They are former minister. So it is nice that we're looking at the borders. They need to be looked at, but let me look inside now. All these nights, Patoga people drinking, close the bridge, and you will get things under control. Thank you.
Yes, and Yoga, some very important points there. I didn't even think about closing the bridge, but I don't think it's such a good idea. I think the police is at various points and they stop you. I have been stopped almost every night I go in home. I've been stopped, except I think 1 or 2 of the nights. But when the rain was falling, I didn't see the police at Providence. But I've been stopping almost every single night, asking where you live in, what's your address. They asked me my address, and I am at one point in time I did start to because, where you live in, Yog? And I'm like, what I got to do with you really? But I mean, I told them I have to be respectful to the police. Any comments to the caller, Yog?
Well, I would just say this, that I cannot disagree that we should be a little bit more vigilant in the facilities that are open. And Leonard, the truth is that all these bars and all these places ought to have been closed. There is a curfew in place. There is a lockdown in place from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. With regards to the bridge, I would say that I would not disagree with the caller in terms of the restricting people crossing. I would only say that the bridge cannot close because the same health workers and so forth, they use the bridge to get from their their home to their work, and essential services will continue. If there's somebody that needs to be transported from a New Amsterdam or a Skellen hospital to a Georgetown hospital, those things need to be there. But yes, we need to be a little bit more vigilant in what we do. At the end of the day, though, Leonard, let me repeat this. It is not the police being vigilant or the politics of this country or the doctors or what. It is up to every one of us, man, woman, and child in this country, to be responsible for our own actions. And that's the only way we can stop ourselves from getting COVID. My final thing here, Leonard, is a lot of young people, especially the young men in this country, somehow or the other, a lot of the young people feel shame. They feel, there's a thing. If you wear a mask, you show like you're weak or something. Be a man and wear your mask. Be a woman and wear your mask. Come on. Be protective of the people's lives rather than you thinking about how you look. And in fact, I'll put it this way. Nobody cares how you look. That's why we want you to wear a mask.
But be a man, Yog. And so we headed straight to the phone lines. Yes, good afternoon, caller, you on the air.
Hey, good afternoon, Mr. Leonard. Good afternoon, Mr. Yog.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
I have two questions, and I hope that you guys could respond to my question. The first one is that, well, we have seen in the previous government and this government, the media play a very critical role in exposing fraud and all these things. I'm looking forward for the media to work on the fraudulent declaration by Mr. Mingo. We have not seen the media interview this guy, where this guy. Mr. Irfan Ali has been charged for 19 charges. What about Mr. Mingo, who has been trying to steal the Guyanese election, the voices of the people right to be elected democratic government? And what is the media doing in regards to Mr. Mingo? He needs to be on the figure now. Where is he? Because he's been trying to fraud the Guyanese people. And the second thing I would like to ask is that the COVID-19, we have currently 117 cases that is positive. Now, if we have 44 that is recovered, what is our present amount of people who are positive? I'm sure it cannot be 117 because if we have 44 recovered. If you could please answer me those questions. Thank you very much.
Good questions. And let me say with regards to the caller when it comes to Mr. Mingo. If you know where Mr. Mingo is, we're trying to get hold of him too, because that would be a very interesting thing. If you have a number for him also, it would be very helpful. I've been trying. I have a number for him, and we've been trying to get hold of him. He's not answering. To be fair, there's two sides and three sides to every story. I would want the gentleman to give a story as to with regard to charges. Yog, let me address it this way. We've seen many calls, an increasing number of calls from one side of the political divide for charges to be laid against Mr. Mingo. I don't think the time for charges is yet. We need to go through this audit of the March 2nd elections that we're having right now. I think that's what it's been described as. When it's over, I think there's some very strong conclusions to be made, because obviously Yog Mahadeo or Gildarie would have to explain how or why did you deviate, why did you drive on the right-hand side of the road when you're supposed to be driving on the left-hand side? Lots of questions to be answered. And of course, GCOM would have to answer as well. I think I've said it before and will say it again, and will even write about it. That is, there will have to be a national inquiry as to what transpired on March 2nd. Even before that, going forward on March 2nd, and after that, everything went well on March 2nd, according from all accounts. Of course, there's been question now by the coalition. What we see happening 2 months later, and we don't have a declaration. We should be ashamed of having $8 billion going to an entity, and it has not been able to deliver. So, Mr. Mingo, we would want to, of course, I would love to have an interview with him, and then maybe see how that goes. It is something what the journalists do, what newspapers do what the media do. With regards to the cases, Yog, I don't know how to answer this. 117 cases. You
Yeah,
go ahead.
but Leonard, I know you are the senior journalist here, so may I suggest to the media across Guyana? I am an independent thinker. I am not attached to any media houses per se, and so I have a little bit more freedom than you, Leonard. So I want to suggest to the media, it has been indeed difficult to get in contact with Mr. Mingo to appear to the public and explain his side of the story. But I beg to suggest, I wish to suggest that Mr. Mingo remains an employee of GCOM. And so therefore, GCOM has to know his whereabouts. And if he is not available to the public, it means that maybe GCOM has advised him to not speak to the public. Here is why I say that, Leonard. The fact is that Mr. Mingo was employed as an RO for the 2020 elections, which are not over as yet. Until a legitimate government is sworn in, all those employees remain contracted to this process of the 2020 elections, if you see my point there, Leonard. So the fact that you remember on this show, you and I said if an RO did not put in the polling books, he should be held responsible. A lot of people didn't like when I said that. But it is true. Until this election is over and done with, you have not separated yourself from what you were hired to do. And the election is not done. So I believe, Leonard, the man remains an employee of GCOM, and GCOM should therefore be able to answer as to whether the PR person at GCOM can continue to talk about him or speak for him through the PR officer, or whether they can clarify whether they have instructed the man to not talk to the press.
Well, let me ask a question as a returning officer. He is an employee of GCOM. Therefore, he would be under the direction of GCOM. I think based on that, could we conclude correctly that that he's not obligated to talk to the media, that he has to seek permission from GCOM before he does that?
Correct. And that's why I believe the question needs to be directed to GCOM itself, and let the PR officer of GCOM say, where is the gentleman and whether he is available to the press. And then you would know whether GCOM even knows his whereabouts, or whether, from my perspective, I mean, let one of the lawyers tell me I'm wrong. I believe the man was employed for the processes of 2020 elections, which is not over as yet. And so he should be available.
Before we head back to the phone lines, Yog, I want to ask you this. It was suspected, I say suspected because I have to walk a very thin line here. It was suspected that the figures that he presented were not true and reflective of what transpired on March the 2nd. I want to ask you, Yog, if it is a conclusion, it's a foregone conclusion based on what is coming out now in Region 4, that it could be concluded that he deliberately injected some figures there that were not supposed to be injected. Could it be concluded now based on the recount?
Absolutely. In fact, the SOPs that they don't want to release is, it remains the proof. But the declaration, Leonard, remember GCOM has Mingo's declaration on their website. And we have a screenshot of that, a date stamp of that, and that is now stored for posterity. The truth is that when you're looking, I called out two of the ballot boxes the other day on this same program. When you're looking at Mingo's declaration, Leonard, for box number 4017, division number 411213, Mingo declared 246 for APNU AFC, and the recount has shown 147. He inflated it by 99.
I want to ask you, Yog, before you go forward here. Yog has three staffers. Three staffers prepared it. and Yog reads out those figures there. Is Yog legally culpable? That's the word. Is Yog legally culpable for what transpired when he made his
Yes.
declarations?
I will tell you, yes, yes, yes. An employer is always vicariously responsible for his employees' actions. Always. Now, remember, Leonard, here is where it gets even more serious. These people took an oath, you know. They swore to do certain things, to follow the election laws. They took an oath. So, can you, for example, write anything you want in Kaicho News? Glenlal is going to come down hard on you because he becomes the employer. Even though Leonard Gildarie writes it, when they got to take Kaicho News to court, they take Glenlal, the publisher, to court. He is responsible for everything you say and do in his newspaper and on his airways. So the fact that Mingo may claim that he employed people, the moment he took that sheet and he's reading from it and he's making it a declaration, he has therefore taken over all the rewards and liabilities that goes with that action. Finally, I'll say to that point, Mingo didn't hear what Roxanne George said when he did the first declaration that go along 84.2 of the laws. He totally ignored what the judge says at the High Court and went ahead and did his own. That now becomes purposeful. That is intentional. The first time you could excuse and say you wanted to do it and get it out of the way, you wanted to be fast about it because it was taken long. But the second time is a clear intention. You cannot hide from that.
Yes, and I'm glad that you would have explained that. The reason why I asked you that, Yog, is because I can't remember if it was Aubrey Norton or Commissioner of GCOM Vincent Alexander would have made it very, or would have said that they can make a conclusion whether Claimant Mingo, had committed any fraud because you don't know what is the events leading up to his declaration, who would have been involved, and so on. And so, yes, you're right. You did make the point that if Gildarie writes something, the box stops at Glenlal as the publisher, because when the court papers come, it names not only Gildarie, but it names the publisher as where the box stops. So we had straight into the phone line now. Yes, good day, caller. You on the air.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Yog.
Good afternoon.
Yes. Speaking, first I'm going to mention the COVID, right? I think Guyanese not following the guidelines and the rules because the police need more. We need more enforcement, but then again, the police cannot do everything. But I'm going to tell you, they got to be more smart because from my experience, what I know, right? A lot of these rum shop and these bar on the weekends, they might seem to appear to be closed, right? You mightn't see nobody in the front. The gate is closed. But when you check at the back, you have 25, 15, 30 body at the back, drinking, playing. You might hear domino playing and all kind of stuff. The vehicle will be parked by other street end. And this is the thing why I know for a fact many places this thing happening, especially during the weekend, and this is not safe. This is very irresponsible. So I think the police need to be on the people who enforcing the law need to be more aware of what's going on. Because a lot of parts of this country, you go in, people just operate normal. No mask, no social distancing, nothing. In terms of Mr. Mingo, I think Kaicho News have reporters at the media shed in front of the ACC. And I would like more of them to ask, especially the APNU people who come there, to defend and make allegations more about this Mingo. What are the comments on this Mingo fiasco? Because most of the thing they're mentioning is things that cannot be proven, that there is no evidence to support, like dead people vote, migrated people vote, and a poll book missing, and one set of nonsense they might hear without anything to prove it. Now, in the Mingo case, you have the evidence there for what he did. And the focus, like it shifts from that. Nobody mentioning that. I see in question or enough question asked in connection with Mingo false declaration. And as the region 4 boxes open, the figure getting larger and larger all the time. So I want to ask you personally if you could get a Kaicho News people there who is there to just ask more of them, and let me hear comments in relation to Mingo fraudulent figures. So that is my contribution. Thank you guys. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, dear caller. And you could get Dr. Yog Mahadeo. You could inbox us if you know with regard to the COVID-19 and those bars and so on. Send us one to those information and we could be able to pass it on. Let me tell you, we cannot have one or two bad eggs to spoil the entire barrel, or one, two bad apples to spoil the entire barrel. It is when those things happen, we cause the entire population to be at risk there, and we can't close the border if we're going to have those kind of cavalier attitude. So if you guys know of a couple of the places who are doing that, and I would want to say that tomorrow, Dr. Yog and myself, we're going to get copies of the last order when it comes to what is essential business and what is not. And we're going to repeat it here so we could remind our people who are the people that are supposed to be on the road after 6 o'clock if the police stop you, that you have a legitimate reason why you should be on the road. At the same time, we're going to say what business, because I pass a couple of the places and I see normal grocery shops and hardware stores and so open as normal. If you go down Regent Street, all the stores are closed. So as if you're driving two parts of the country, one on the East Bank and then you go down Georgetown, and it seems as if Georgetown is under a different government, different jurisdiction, and everybody seems to be doing what they feel like. And we have, as citizens, we got to be very, very serious when it comes to demanding and making sure that our people understand what is at stake here. We could do less without any more deaths, and I think I'm glad that we don't have any more deaths. We see Nias Soban saying that he is out of the isolation right now. It's 10 deaths that we recorded, and I think one is too many. It's 117 cases, positive cases. 1,164 tests have been conducted across the nation so far, and these are what is coming from the authorities. 63 persons remain in isolation, 6 in quarantine, 44 persons are recovered. We go straight back to the phone line.
But Leonard,
yes.
Before you go.
Yes, go ahead.
Before you go. There is a very important question. You raised something extremely important, the last little brief interaction you and I had just now.
Yes, sir.
About Mingo's whereabouts and about his liability for his declaration. Sir, I want to throw this to you and the Guyanese public. If Mingo is responsible and ought to be held responsible for making a false declaration, purposely making a declaration that he knows to be untrue, right? Mingo read that declaration out, read those numbers out, Leonard, and he attested to it. He swore to it. He made those statements out. Sir, Mingo is obviously liable for that false declaration. But here is my question. So too, if Mingo is responsible for that declaration, so too is the person who co-signed that declaration, sir.
And let me see if I follow your train of thoughts. There were some signatures in that. But what about his boss, the publisher of GCOM, the publisher of GCOM, who's chief?
Of course.
Okay.
His boss is culpable. But remember, at that moment, Mingo read a declaration and he signed it. And I think Miss Lawrence also signed it. And the two of them must be held responsible for every dollar that was spent from that night to when this process will be completed. They must be held responsible, and I would like to petition the courts of Guyana. I would like to petition every Guyanese to take a class action suit and let us take this so that somebody will be held responsible. That action, Leonard, has cost this country billions of dollars and unquantifiable shame in the international arena.
Well, you know, Yoga, one of the things that we have not been paying much attention to is the cost of elections post-March the 2nd, post-March the 6th, when everything went down. And then we would have had so many back and forth with the courts and so on. How much has it costed us? Is this in excess of the $8 billion? Well, lots of questions to be asked there. And so, if you're now joining us, elections and COVID-19 watch, what was it that you need to know? It is that we would have heard from the Barbados business community not so long ago, Mr. Mohindra Persaud of the Nan Persaud group of companies. And he would have been telling us that rice has done pretty well up in Berbice for the last crop, barring the water shortage that they would have had. Of course, he's saying that they're asking for help in some communities there, and at the end of the day, agriculture would remain the backbone of Guyana while we pay attention to oil and gold and so on. Rice has done pretty well, and one of these days we're going to come back and tell you what has been happening across the Caribbean. But there's a caller online right now. Let's go right to caller. You on the air. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes. Good afternoon. You're on the air.
Hi, Gildarie. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
We must understand, everybody's saying that GCOM has the power. First of all, it was GCOM chairperson who met we there where we there. Because as you and Brother Yog is saying, as the employer, she had the right to object and stop Mr. Mingo from doing what he was doing when it was brought to her attention. What did she do? She didn't do anything. This thing is a circle where everybody, when it reaches you, you got to do your part. And she's supposed to be charged the very next day. Your signature is on a document that it was not supposed to be on. You know, if I had done something like that, the police would have the court would have sentenced me to jail because it was clear forgery. Why is she being exempt? Is she because she's a minister? You know, and these are the little questions, and I agree with Brother Yog. We should. Private people in this country should wake up and move to the court and demand that the commissioner of police move from all indications.
We're losing you there, sir. We're losing you.
Yeah, from all indication, we should demand that the commissioner of police take some action on Mr. Osvaldo Lawrence. You know, because if you and I do a less thing than that, we go to the lockup right away. We won't even get bail. So I need that we must talk and get these things highlighted. Somebody needs, Brother Yog, when you're ready to do that, I'm ready to sign the petition. We need to lock up somebody, forgery. And Mr. Mingo, I don't understand how people could still try to defend this man. He doesn't even want to try to defend. Clear robbery. You make a mistake in counting maybe a 1 or a 2 or a 3. Man, I exact 100 and 150 and 60 and 90. That's clear thieving. And by the time this election thing, the president is saying that he will abide and accept, there is a whole saying. My father, now watch what man has said. Watch what man has do. Watch what he do. Wait for 2 months. When he do it, then I go. Until then, he changed his mind and he backpedal and he front pedal too much from since December of the previous year, 2018, when they know that's the situation. Gentlemen, keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, Zir, for the call. Yog, my question to you, while he has raised some questions here, is Claudette Singh liable for anything? Because I'm not sure whether she has signed anything. After the declarations from the 10 region, the Chief Elections Officer, Keith Lowenfield, would have prepared a document, the declarations, the national declarations, and would have submitted to the commission proper, that's the 6 commissioners, as well as the chair, Justice Retired Claudette Singh. Did she sign anything? Maybe I could accuse her or Yog Mahadeo or Gildarie of not heading to the floor and not doing her job as we understand it to be. But did she do anything that would make her legally culpable?
She is responsible, legally culpable. If you steal something out of your employer's place, you are legally responsible for the act of theft.
Mm-hmm.
Your boss would be vicariously responsible for the loss that somebody might have gone through because of your action. However, here is how we got to dissect this, Leonard. Remember, you and I, we spent, I think, a whole week and we were sharing these opinions. Here is something that you need to think of. The chairman we didn't like what she was doing. She was locked in her office. She was now walking the floor. From one perspective, one could argue that the chairman did not want to micromanage because she employed people according to the laws to do what they had to do. To her credit, while we all didn't like her disposition in terms of not being involved, because we got used to her predecessor being in the forefront all the time. In hindsight, you look at Dr. Suresvali and you see him being in the forefront all the time, and now you're seeing somebody who was not in the forefront. You and I have every day been talking about where is the chairman, why she can't come and make press releases. Why is she allowing Alexander and Gunraj to make these releases? So take a step back, Leonard. Mingo cannot argue to the court that his employers did not allow him, or his employees stepped into his process and did not give him the freedom to do what he had to do. You see, so it has another side to it, right? Mm-hmm. So Mingo now has no ground to stand on that his employees interfere with his terms and his duties of his according to his contract. The chairman, when Roxanne George called GCOM in front of her, the chairman immediately swore on an affidavit to undertake a recount. That means at that point, the chairman signaled her disagreement with what Mingo did. Mm-hmm. So if one were to dot all the I's and cross the T's, you would see the chairman may have kept herself aloof, but also she kept herself out of a liability per se, even though the responsibility is still there, the umbrella responsibility. One last thing I'll say to this point, and I'm not, please, Leonard, I'm not drawing a comparison. If you want to compare it, sir, you have the freedom to. But isn't the president of this country on record for saying, I am not interfering with GCOM. I will swear in when they tell me to swear in. So he too has kept a line where he is saying, whatever they do over there, I'm not responsible. Don't ask me, don't blame me. Full stop.
Well, there's so many things, because I think tomorrow we would go into it back. Where did Claudette Singh err, or did she err? Because I could remember having a conversation sometime back, and she would have pointed out that, look, I was the one who stopped that house, the house which would have ran into several months. And I stopped it when I went in, when I was sworn in as chair. I put it, I think, a couple of weeks, and then she brought it to an end. And there was a couple of things that she would have done that ruled against the coalition as well. So maybe was her hands tied? These are questions that we could probably raise at this point, maybe tomorrow when we're back. But Yog, this afternoon, we have one more call. We take a quick call, and then we head in. Yes, good afternoon, caller. Quickly, you're on the air.
Good afternoon.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Am I to
Kaicho Radio? You're on Kaicho Radio. You're on air.
Okay. Just something I want to say, right?
Uh-huh.
I always listen to your program, right? And what they are saying that the president, he's saying that he has nothing to do with GCOM. Listen to me, all people who got a problem saying that you can choke dog without putting rope in neck. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And all what they're saying and go wrong, they think that people are children. We are not children. We understand everything, and we know exactly what is going on. But we are just, sometimes you just got to play fool to see what these sensible people are doing. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zay. Yog, so before I ask you to comment on that.
I think that was well said, caller. Well said. I cannot even comment on that. But I'll say the following, Leonard. What boggles my mind is, Leonard, you know me. I do not hold a party card. I do not belong to any political party by choice. Everybody has invited us to be part of their list. We choose to stay on. But what boggles my mind, Leonard, with all the shenanigans from March 3rd to now, with everything that's being unearthed from March 3rd to now, how do you hope to win another election in this country? I don't know.
Well, I'm not even sure what is going to happen, whether we're going to have elections in another couple of years. We have to do reforms. And that the first priority of any new government that is coming in would have to be that the people are demanding that reforms be something that is top of the agenda. Yog this
And
evening, yes.
Leonard, two more workstations would have been approved by the COVID task force for the recount.
Also, that's the latest news now. They have approved two.
That's the latest news. Two more workstations
we
have been approved.
And did we do a calculation based on the current trajectory as to what that means to the 25 days?
Not as yet. That should happen. This just happened about a minute ago, and let's call him out and thank him, Mr. Philip Persaud, on our one of our viewers who inboxed us. Thank you, Mr. Persaud, and I've checked. Mr. Sayers Gunraj has just corroborated that. That is confirmed. Two more workstations from tomorrow. Region 2, viewers and listeners, Region 2 has also been completed. And, we will be sharing those results and those declarations as soon as they become available.
Yes, do thank you. So, Yog, we will be paying attention to those two extra. I'm not sure, in my mind, we haven't done any calculations based on what you see happening now, whether the two extra counting stations is going to be any significant help in the whole scheme of things.
Put it this way, if you work with the law of averages, not law, but if you work with, averaging out, you had 60 boxes yesterday, 10 workstations, that's 6 per workstation per day. So if you have 2 more workstations, at the maximum, you'll get 12 at their current pace. But remember, there will be new people, so it will be slow start. But let us just say that you get 10 more per day. It's nowhere near what would be needed to meet that 25 days. That's what I'm telling you. It's going to be just probably about 10 additional boxes per day if you want to be generous.
Well, thank you for that. And so how much more could again these people bear in terms of this dragging out of the process? One story after another. The old people say, man, like I give up. But let me ask you, Yog, this evening you have some very important guests there, Annette Arjun and so on, and they're going to talk about the environment. Annette is my friend. Tell us a little bit of that.
Well, yes, we're all so consumed with elections and COVID and so forth. We got to remember at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, that the oil company continue to work offshore. We got to remember that our coastal regions continue to be under threat from the high tides and all of that. And what we want to do tonight is to look at how Guyana's ecosystem is poised. And tonight we have Miss Annette Arjun. We have a lecturer. As everybody know, Annette Arjun has been a champion for our environment, a champion for preserving our forests, for the mangrove replantation exercise and all of that. Mm-hmm. We also have Stephen Munsami, who is looking at the ecosystem economics. For example, Leonard and viewers and listeners, if we ignore the mangrove planting, what is the cost to the country then? So there's an economics that is involved here. And we're also going to have Mr. Joe Ryan all the way from Norway to join us tonight. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be an interesting but very important discussion. And we're also going to look at whether we are ready for an oil spill. What's the risk that we face in this country from the oil exploration and the oil extraction going on, and a number of other things pertaining to the ecosystem. So it's going to be a good, very educating 45 minutes that we have with the 3 experts. And certainly, I would like to encourage everyone to join us tonight at 7:30 p.m. in room 592 as we look at Guyana's ecosystems with the experts. As everybody knows, Norway also has a hand in Guyana's carbon footprint and all of that. So this gentleman, Joe Ryan, he has been in Guyana and was part of our, development of proposals and so forth for the maintenance of our ecosystems. Leonard, over to you.
Thank you very much, dear Dr. Yog Mahadeo. Always been a pleasure with him. And so we are going to be back here, same place, same time tomorrow for Elections COVID-19 Watch. This evening, we're going to be back with room 592 at 7:30 sharp. and that is going to be very exciting. I want to say thank you very much for joining us across the coastlands, wherever you are, across the Caribbean, North America, Europe, and of course our neighbors. Have a pleasant rest of the day. We're going to be back with you.